It all began with the forging of the Lord of the Rings. 4 books were given to the boomers, most muddle-minded, self-important, and authoritarian of all beings, who collapsed into paroxysms of hemp-huffing hippie glee, while J.R.R. Tolkien sneered on in contempt at their Bolshevik buffoonery. 3 animated films were given to Gen X, nearly as bad as the boomers, yet unjustifiably persuaded of their own superiority, despite being responsible for bullshit like Hands Across America, Rage Against the ATM Machine, and the entire discography of R.E.M. Millennials made due with 3 fine films, the fairest in all the land, which won myriad Oscars. And also Golden Globes, but who the hell cares about that? And then there were those other 3 movies that were fun until the 15th fucking orc fight. But they were all of them deceived. For another Lord of the Rings was made, only this one was pronounced Rangz. In the land of Snortor, in the fires of Mount Coom, the Dark Lord Amazon forged in secret a master Rangz to control all others. And into this Rangz he poured all his Comintern cruelty, his Menshevik malice, and his will to wokify all life. 1 ring to make tools of them all. Not since Sony plundered Michael Jackson's corpse for his music catalog before the autopsy was even concluded have I seen a more profligate looting of a dead man's legacy than what Amazon have now done to J.R.R. Tolkien. Any distant fleeting hope, any far-flung lingering glimmer of optimism that may have been clinging by its fucking fingertips to the back of our brains was dashed for most. I really don't know what else to say about this footage, so you fucking look. Like sands through the Palantir, so are the rings of our lives. I'm not saying this show is a glorified laundering operation, but Amazon's new spokesman is fucking Snuggles, which is germane to the series at large, really, as you'd have to be rolling on Tide Pods to pinch this shit out. Look, I think we can all acknowledge it at this point. We were deeply and abidingly fortunate with what Fran Walsh, Peter Jackson, and Philippa Boyens did with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Well, there were plenty of nits to pick for a fact. I've always felt Shelob should have been at the end of the second film and ended in a Frodo death cliffhanger, for example, and don't even get me started on the Scouring of the Shire. But folks, we were spoiled. At least it was essentially the same story, featuring essentially the same characters, serving a function more or less in service to the same theme. I mean, sure, having Sam the Gardener suddenly offer soaring oratory about the travails of recent global tragedies was so sky-shatteringly unsubtle, it may as well have ended with him shouting, "Remember 9/11, Mr. Frodo." But that's about as political as the proceedings ever became. Hell, even the flawed but fun Hobbit looks like Gone with the Goddamn Wind next to Amazon's streaming service Sermon. I never hated those movies, to be sure. To me, The Hobbit is like copping a feel on an Asian chick. Padded, but still fun. But when Amazon's involved, I mean, isn't allowing a fantasy saga that thematically speaking is essentially anti-industrial revolution propaganda to be adapted by Amazon, who are just this side of a Captain Planet villain, a bit like letting the chair of the NRA deliver the JFK eulogy? Now, this news has been ubiquitous among the YouTube commentariat, and you may have noticed I've been conspicuously silent on the subject thus far, at least outside of podcast appearances and the like, and the reason why is spectacularly simple. As I have said so very, very often, the opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. Hatred and the views incumbent upon it will not vanquish the Dark Lord Bezos back to the coastal quagmire from whence he emerged. Only the crushing, thunderous silence of absolute abject indifference can accomplish that. And this is a rare case where the mainstream media reviewers may actually be leading the charge. You see, as of yesterday, the review embargo of Rings of Power has lifted, and the reviews are uglier than apartheid. Variety tempered a semi-positive appraisal with repeated references to stilted acting and a plot that's drier than a feminist around a male feminist. The Daily Mail went even further with a headline describing it as, quote, mesmerizing awfulness. Even among the tempered positivity of mainstream publications, one of the lone truly glowing appraisals of the Wangs of Power should be expected to emanate from the Washington Post, the personal pinko rag of Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. But, well, let's sample a smidgen of that review, shall we? With particular attention to choice cuts like, its defining influence isn't Game of Thrones' epic scale, but Marvel's neuteredness, and, quote, if the production design weren't so spectacular, the Rings of Power wouldn't be at all out of place on Disney+. Ouch! Not long ago, Peter Jackson told a tale about being approached to direct, produce, or be otherwise involved in this TV series, only when he asked for the script, they not only failed to scribble one up for him, they suddenly lost his number, meaning someone at Amazon was well apprised of Peter Jackson's public battles with Warner Brothers and being outspoken about production difficulties on The Hobbit, and didn't want him letting anyone know the script is written in fucking crayon. Though at this point, it was an act of outright charity, because now Peter Jackson can stand at a safe distance, watch the mushroom cloud from afar, and say, fuck, it's awesome not being at the center of that. And what a tack nuke it was. Black elves, brown dwarves, and Galadriel warrior princess. I can only assume they're saving transsexual ring wraiths for the second season.
What are they? They were once men.
Huh?
And anyone who's followed this series even the slightest bit knows the behind-the-scenes production had almost as many politics as the script, firing 3 separate producers and 2 executives in charge of production, and even shit-canning the person who originally inked the production deal with the fucking Tolkien estate, before ultimately pawning it all off on refugees from J.J. Abrams' own Bad Robot, who at this point is basically the Doc Kevorkian of beloved fucking franchises. Shh, no more tears, Tolkien fans. Just slide the IV in the arm of this series and watch it drift off into the sweet release of death. The burning sensation means it's working! For my money, the most contemptible thing about what Amazon is doing to the storied legacy of this seminal fantasy franchise is not the wokeness or the agenda. It ain't the 11-5 different ways they consciously fucked the lore in the ass, then blame the audience for noticing. It's that they did all of this having specifically waited until Christopher Tolkien was planted in the ground to do so, knowing he would have vocally disowned the series if he still drew breath, and knowing further that his contemptible fucking progeny and the modern heirs of the Tolkien legacy would sell their great-grandfather's name for $15 in Molocop cash. Do not hate watch. Do not signal boost. Let this conscious fucking affront die and decay in obscurity, mocked precisely once and then ignored for all eternity. The J.R.R. Woking saga is a prime and operative example of what I've been saying for a decade or more. If you're a fan of something, particularly anything not yet awash in cultural Marxism, create that fan community yourself. Websites, YouTube channels, Discords, define the fuck out of that community, because if you don't, someone else sure as shit will. I'm Razor Fist. God fucking speed.